So yesterday, or in the last lesson, I suggested that when you have an equation in general form like this, it's sometimes useful to change it to vertex form. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we'd like to keep it this way. For example, this form is much easier to find the x-intercepts. So we want to work with it in this form a little bit. Okay, a couple of things to note. When it's in this form, the good news is the y-intercept is really easy to find, right? Because if we make x be 0, those two terms are going to disappear, and the y-intercept is always just going to be the constant. So that's really quick. Okay, it's also factorable usually, so x-intercepts are easier to find in this form. Okay, so how do we find the vertex though? Because in this form you can't just read the vertex. Well, there's a couple of things that we can do. Okay, if you think about a parabola with two x-intercepts, the axis of symmetry is going to be right in the middle of those two x-intercepts. So you can find the average, and that you do that by going, well, what are the two x values divided by 2? Okay, and so then if we don't know what those x-intercepts are, we could use the quadratic formula to find them. Alright, and if you simplify the quadratic formula, you get this formula right here. This is how you find the x value of the vertex when it's in general form. You take negative b over 2a. Because if you think about the quadratic formula, plus or minus, these two, because it's plus or minus, would cancel when you're adding them. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. And then to find the y value, we'll just substitute back into the equation. So let's try one of these. So it says we're supposed to identify the intercepts, the equation of the axis of symmetry, and the coordinates of the vertex. Well, let's try this. Y-intercept is easy. It's negative 30. X-intercept. We're going to probably have to factor this. So let's do this here. If I divide everything by 2, I get x squared minus 2x minus 15. And this can be factored. X minus 5, x plus 3, and so my x-intercepts are 5 and negative 3. So you can see general form has its purposes. These two things are easy to do. X-intercepts and y-intercepts. Okay, so you know you've got a parabola that looks something like this. The problem is we don't know what the vertex is here. Now again, it's going to be in the middle of these 2 points. So you could take negative 3 plus 5, add them, you get 2 divided by 2, you end up with 1. But you can also do that straight from the equation. If you go negative b, so that's negative 4, over 2b, you end up with 4 over 4, which is 1. So the vertex, the x value, is 1. How do you find the y value? We're going to put 1 into the equation. And so you would get 2 minus 4 minus 30 is negative 32. And so we'll put negative 32 here. So that's how you find the vertex when you have it in this form. Okay? Equation of the axis of symmetry, x equals 1. Okay. Let's try another one. Okay, you guys pause it. And can you please find the y-intercept, find the x-intercept, and then find the vertex. Okay, the y-intercept is negative 18. The x-intercept, let's see. Okay, let's see if we can factor this. Normally, they're factorable. Okay, I would say expect it to be able to be factored. Okay, so I think we can go minus 2 here, plus 9. I believe that works, yep. And so my x-intercepts are negative 9 halves and 2. So negative 9/2, that's about 4.5, and 2. The y-intercept is negative 18. And so you can see that this parabola is going to look something like this. What we have to do is figure out what the vertex is. Okay, vertex, x value. X is negative b over 2a. So this is negative 5/4. And then how do we find the y value? You have to plug this in to the equation. And a lot of you are going, oh no, fractions, I don't want to have to do this. Well, now that you're in grade 11 pre-cal, you have to be able to work with fractions. You have to be able to do this. Okay? So this is going to be 2 times 25 over 16 plus negative 25 over 4 minus 18. So we're going to need some common denominators here. This is 50 over 16. This is minus 100 over 16. And this is negative 64 over 16. So this equals negative 114 over 16. Again, I'm not worried if you don't simplify it. This is good. Okay. Sorry, I made a little mistake there. It is not negative 114 over 16 because it's not 64 over 16. If I go 18 times 16, it's actually 288 over 16. So that's quite a bit of a different answer. So this is 238 over 16. Okay. Let's try this one. You guys should pause right now and do this on your own. It doesn't do you any good to watch me do it. You have to try it first. Okay, so this is going to be 2x plus 5 minus 1. So x is going to be a half, negative 5/2. Again, it's going to look something like this. Let's find the vertex. So negative b over 2a is 1. Right, is that right? Oh, that's negative b over 2a. Yeah, that's positive 1. That's not right. Okay, here's a good way to deal with this. I've made a mistake here. Obviously, this is not 1. It looks like it should be negative 1. Okay, but it's not. It is actually 1. So what's my mistake? My mistake is how I factored. So we got to go back up here and change this. These are not the factors because I did not factor it correctly. Okay, I'm going to divide this by a negative. I didn't see that negative 4 there. So I'm going to make this positive. Okay, and now when I factor, I'm going to get 2x, and this is a bit of a problem here because I don't know how this factors. Because if they both have to be positive, let's try it. So if I went, no, it's not going to factor. Let's try it b squared minus 4ac to see if that tells me anything. So this is 64, take away 80. Well, that's obviously a problem. Okay, that can't be factored. So, if it can't be factored, what do we do then for the x-intercepts? Well, you're going to go negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times negative 4 times negative 5 over 2 times negative 4. So x is negative 8 plus or minus, okay, so this is 20, negative 80, so this is negative 16. Uh-oh, what does this mean? Negative 16 tells me there must be no x-intercept, no roots, right? Well, let's see if that makes sense. The y-intercept is negative 5, and it opens down. So you can see it's not going to cross this. Well, we don't know that for sure. Let's try the vertex. This is a good example of what happens when things just don't seem to work out the way you want them. There's usually a reason for it. Okay, so negative b over 2a. So this is 1, so the vertex is going to be at 1. And then let's find out what y is. Y is negative 4 times 1 squared plus 8 times 1 minus 5. So this is negative 4 plus 8 minus 5 is negative 1. So let's put that here. 1, negative 1. And so my parabola is going to look like this. Now everything seems to make sense. That's why I had no x-intercepts. Alright. Make sure you try that one again, because that one caused me a couple of little mistakes. Okay, example 3. This is a bit of an outlier. It's a bit of a weird question. I totally skipped over this before. We've talked about general form. We've talked about the vertex or standard form. Look at factored form. Okay, factored form we normally don't need, except in this case. It says the graph of a parabola passes through negative 60, and it has zeros at negative 4 and positive 2. So I don't know, this thing looks something like this. Write the equation in general form. Notice it does not give me the vertex. Now you might be able to figure it out, but you don't need to. We're going to use this form. This is called factored form. Okay, so what you do is we put in the 2 zeros, like so. Okay, the 2 zeros are right here. They're x1 and x2. So x1 is negative 4, x2 is 2. And then we'll use this other point to go in for x and y. So you have negative 60 is a, and you have 6 plus 4, 6 minus 2. This is very similar to the question we had on a different page, but this time we're using a different form to write the equation. So a is negative 60 over 40, which in this case we can simplify pretty easy to be negative 3 over 2. Okay, and we're done, except that it says to write in general form. So let's write the equation. Y is negative 3 halves x plus 4 x minus 2. This is the factored form. And what you want to do now is change it around to general form. So let's FOIL this. We'll get x squared minus 2x plus 4x minus 8. And then I'll multiply this. I get negative 3 halves x squared This is 2x, so minus 3x plus negative 3/2 times 8 is 12. Here is general form. Okay, so go back and try that one. Maybe watch the video a couple more times to see if you need to figure that out. Doesn't happen much. You get a question like that. I'll leave this one here. You can try this one. It's very similar to one we've already done. You know, you're going to draw that parabola to see if you can figure out what the equation is. Okay, I'm going to leave that for you to try. You can ask me in class if you're stuck. Here's your homework.